library. My name is Alan McKinley. I'm the library director here. So I take any blame and any credit that you feel like giving out can all come to me. But really, thank you for joining us. We're here to introduce you to Sam Mooney, who's our third artist in residence here at the library. This is a program that we started jointly in collaboration with the Westfield Art Association and Darrin Owens probably about a year ago at this point. And it's really been such a great thing for the library. You know, one of my favorite parts about this is bringing artists in to make art in the library. As someone who is not an artist but who admires, I never understand like how is this created, and so the residency is an opportunity for people to be able to see artists making their art and ask questions and watch, and it's just brought sort of a different kind of energy to the library. The library historically is, people think of it as a place for sort of, passive consumption. You read a book, you study, but it's really brought a more sort of organic experience into the library. So thank you all for being here tonight and joining us, and I'll turn things over to Sam and Darrin.
Thanks, Alan. So my name is Darrin Owens, as Alan said. I'm the president of the Westfield Art Association. The Westfield Art Association is a totally volunteer organization made up mostly of artists and some art appreciators. We have about 155 people on our email list. Close to between 80 and 90 of those are active artists who are producing art, and they're in a lot of our shows. We have done, the mission of the Art Association is to provide art education and to provide public exhibitions. So that's kind of the mission, as well as support artists and help them get their work in different, whether it's a gallery or a library. We'll have shows periodically here in the library of all our artists. We've been in shows in Environmental Education Center, all over the different place. Hedda, one of our artists, is here tonight. Thanks, Hedda, for being here. And to echo Alan, I definitely want to thank Alan, because if it wasn't for him, this artist in residency program wouldn't be in existence. He and I met probably 2 years ago now, and we were talking about better ways to coordinate between the Art Association and the library, because we have a common mission is to really provide things to the public, and providing art to the public is kind of our job, and we have the artists who can do this, and then the library has the space and the ability to do, to provide it to everybody. So let me just tell you a little bit about the Artist in Residency program, and then we'll get to the Meet the Artist interview for Sam. And Sam, don't be nervous. So this is the third Artist in Residency that's happened. It started last year, so we had 2 artists last year. Jennifer Wilner was the first one. She was a pop art artist. And the second one was Kiana Lawrence. She was a very organic, kind of very bright colors and very moving feelings type of artist. And you'll see Sam's art is very different than those. So one of the great things, like as Alan said, is that we can provide different types of art and people who have different styles and show that to the public. This year we had 7 applications for the Artist in Residency program. So the interest among the artists is growing, which makes it a lot harder for the committee to select, because any one of the 7 could have been sitting here tonight. They were all great applications. People are very, very talented. I'm amazed by how much talent we have locally and in New Jersey of just people who are able to produce art and just teach art and have that passion. This year, there's the 2 residencies are from March through June, which is what Sam is doing. And there's one from August to November, which Kelly is actually our next artist in residence. So you will all meet her in this chair sometime in August. And so it's a 4-month program. And what the artist does is, like Sam is here twice a week. She'll tell you a little bit more about that. They put their art in this hallway here. It's like the gallery for the artist in residence. So I highly encourage you to go out and look at her art that's up there. And as she creates more art, the more will go up. They also do 2 workshops. So every artist has their own style and their own way of teaching. And so Sam will tell you a little bit tonight about what she has planned for the workshops. In the past, some have been geared towards children, some have been geared towards adults, but that's really up to the artist. And they're open and free to the public. So that's the great thing about the workshop. They don't have to pay, and they can do hands-on art and get totally different styles. And then the last thing, which is really interesting. So this is a limited edition library card that was designed by Jennifer Wilner, who was our first artist in residence. So part of the artist in residence program, each artist is going to get their own design and produce a limited edition library card. This is the one I bought, so I'm not going to give it away. So Kiana's working on one now, right, Alan? She's working on one. And then Sam will get the opportunity to do hers. And so they'll each have their own design. I'm going to collect them and put them up on my wall. I think it's really cool. So that's another part of it. For the artists, not only do they get to interact with the public, make connections, maybe meet a future collector, they get a financial stipend, which, art is not an easy career to make work financially. So that's a positive thing. All residencies, no matter where you are, it could be in France, Paris, or Florence. You get paid something to be your artist in residence. Also, the artwork is up for sale. So if Sam meets somebody and they want to buy her artwork, it's up for sale. She also has a fantastic website, which we'll get to tonight. But just before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit how the interview will work, and then I'll shut up because it's all about Sam tonight. But I'm just going to prompt her some questions, and it's all about hearing how Sam got into art, what her plans are, like explaining, which I really want to hear more about abstract art. We're all different types of artists. Like I'm a representational artist, or like realism. So when I paint, it kind of looks like a bird or whatever I'm painting, right? And abstract expressionism is totally different. So I'm really excited to hear Sam's journey and how she got into it. But anyway, just to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, like your background.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. Thank you for coming. I am from Westfield originally, and now I'm back after many, many years of being away. I have always been an artist, I guess. Mostly painting, doing a lot of crafting, anything along those lines, doing graphic design for a while. Just a lot of art all the time.
So, you growing up in Westfield, right? Is it more meaningful to be an artist in residency in town, or?
Yes, I've actually been thinking about that a lot. Because the Westfield Library is where I used to go as a kid. Pick out my books with my mom, and it was always green eggs and ham. Sam, I am. And yeah, it's just wild to like be here now all the time, and be able to create art for people and show them and kind of represent me as a person, I guess.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, I know you got your bachelor's in art history.
Yes.
So did you always know you wanted to be an artist and wanted to study it in college? Or when you were in high school, did you think of?
So, I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say yes. So, I originally wanted to be the president. 2024 was the year I turned 35, so I would be eligible. That was my plan at 17. I went to school for political science because I went to DC, so that was kind of the plan. Then I just hated it and switched to art history because that was always something that was fascinating. I took art like every time I could in school. So all the way through high school, in Art 4, if anyone has gone through Westfield High School, it's very difficult. And we did do like a small art history portion during that class, so I thought that was really fascinating. And my parents, we would go traveling and go to museums, so it's really cool to like learn about those things in a more like academic setting versus just walking around a museum. But yeah, when I got to college, I took art history, just like an introductory course, my first semester, and it covered like the beginning of time up to probably like 1600s. So it's a really broad stretch of time, and you learn a lot about all sorts of different things, and that was really fascinating to me. And so even when I was in school, in high school, like I was studying, Impressionism, because I always thought that was super fascinating, and it's just kind of how we can talk about this more later, but kind of how I paint now is trying to follow that kind of system. So that's always been something I've tried to focus on as I've gone through my artistic journey.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back to that. I got a
Yeah.
whole bunch of questions.
Sure.
So, being in DC, did you take advantage of all the different
Oh, yeah.
museums that are free and you can just?
They're all free. It's so great. Like, I would write papers on artwork that I would go look at in museums, which was so great because I could walk into the National Gallery, turn right, go 2 doors down, turn left, and that was the painting I wanted to do. That's where the Monets were, and then you go right, it's the Van Goghs. I have it all memorized. Been there for a very long time. So yeah, and they're still there, hopefully. But yeah, it would be so great. There's like a little couch because it's a museum sometimes, and I would just bring my laptop and type, and it's cool to work directly from the painting itself. And I can talk about art in like an art history sense, so like really academically and boring, but like, how I make art is so different from how I study art, if that makes sense.
I'm gonna get back to that one.
I know.
I wanted to ask you about your parents, because were they always supportive? Were you? No.
So yeah, I have an older sister who is a couple years older. She has always been artsy, like doing her own thing. She's a photographer. So when she was younger, she worked. Her first job was at Moto Photo downtown, if anyone remembers. And so I was kind of secretly obsessed with trying to be her. And so I thought if she could be an artist, I could be an artist. And that's still kind of what I think in my head. Like, I always go to her first. I'm like, do you like this? So her opinion is very important. But, seeing her, and my parents always like supported her doing that. She went to college, she did graphic design. I was like, oh, that's cool. My brother's a photographer and he's a musician and all that stuff. So we're very artsy.
You have a
children.
very artistic family.
My parents, no offense, are not very artsy. My dad does business. My mom studied English, and I don't know, I guess you merge those two and you get art children. Like, if that's the formula. But yeah, so always like do whatever you want. Here's some art supplies, go nuts. I mean, I've destroyed their house with paint since moving back home. They don't love that, sorry. But yeah.
So I want to get back to that. You as an art historian is very different than you as an artist. Like,
Yes.
tell me a little more about
So I was kind of a bad student. I would fall asleep because in an art history lecture hall, the lights are down low. It's prime college nap time of like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But no, it's so great. You get to hear, the professors I had were so knowledgeable and so intelligent, and they really like lived their artwork, and how they taught artwork was truly through like visiting museums and experiences and all that. One of them was like a night in Portugal or something. I forget her story. But so she was really big into like whatever part of the world that is, art. And she had like a huge knowledge base of everything. And so hearing them talk was really fascinating, and it gets you really involved in the art, and that's really important. I think when describing art, if you're like passionate about it and you can just get people to listen to you, even if it's super boring otherwise, like that's how I got invested, because it's, I do want to learn about this really boring painting of like a night. It's so boring to me.
yeah.
But like, I paint blobs, like it's not night. But yeah, I mean, it's so fascinating, and to just be surrounded by that culture in DC and have those museums. There's a million museums you can go to. And just having those experiences is really, really foundational, is the word I'm going to use.
Oh, that's great. And I'm going to get back to the actual residency, but I really want to talk about abstract art, because how and one of the things, like when Sam applied, she had a great artist statement, and it was really about her the way she likes to feel artwork. It's a very kinesthetic thing for her.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear a little more about that, and also bring in a little bit more, like, when you studied artists from the past, did it influence you as you went into art? Or, well, I don't want to ask too many.
What was the first question?
First about abstract. How'd you get into abstract?
Oh, how did I get into abstract art?
Or what is it first? Since you're an art history.
That's such a
buff.
broad, vague question. I'm going to give you a very broad, vague answer. Abstract art is whatever you want it to be. Like, what is this to you guys? Anything? No? Yes? Great. That's all that matters. But more specifically, like, I studied very specific time periods, like regions, you know, like, what's the word I want? Colonial, Renaissance, Impressionists, post-realism, modern, all that fun stuff. But for me, abstract art, it kind of came about because I can't paint people. I can't paint things. I can, yes, but I don't like doing it. So I've taken painting classes, I've gone to school for art. Those classes were fun because I get to create, but they're not fun because I cannot accurately represent myself in a self-portrait. Like, it's awful. You can look at them. You'll be like, ooh. I did take a class a few years ago, and I needed to paint a portrait. I asked my brother to send me a photo. It's possibly the worst depiction of a human being in the history of art making. I sent it to him, and he was like, that's what you think I look like. So it's just kind of like turned around in my room right now, so no one can ever see it. It's probably haunted, like, you know.
You can be like Van Gogh, paint on the back of it and hang that up.
Yeah, I might just paint over it. He obviously doesn't want it. But no. So abstract, it just felt like a lot easier in a way, because there was no like plan going into it. It was just, I put paint on a paper and was like, oh, this is kind of fun to just like paint, spread it around, see what happens, put more paint on, mix it. Like for me, there's no rules or like guidelines to abstract art. It's just kind of what you feel in the moment. So I can go in and just no plan, like totally empty head, and just make a mess is what I call it, but just paint, and that's it. There's like no rhyme or reason for it, it's just for funsies. But when I like sit and think about it, it gets a lot more difficult, and I think that's like where it gets to be more work versus fun. So I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but
no, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like
you're
really
trying to
hard.
use your mind.
It's hard to like connect those two parts, and so the texture and like the way it feels and the way it looks, and just physically painting, like I paint a lot with a palette knife, so feeling how the paint like moves over the other textures below is really important, because that just makes me happy, and I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And like, I want you guys or the viewer, whoever, to see it and be like, oh, that's so cool, the way it like, the paint kind of organically goes like this. And it doesn't have to necessarily be anything for it to be a cool painting. So you'll see like a lot of the work in the hall is just kind of, it all is something to me, but to like other people, they may not see it specifically as like the random title I gave it, like Flowers in the Field or whatever.
Right.
Like this one is called Green Wave. That's what I see. Is that what you see? Like, you know? So abstract for me is really open to interpretation. So I really want people to understand you don't need like any sort of art history background or anything like that to just look at an abstract painting and go, that's cool.
Yeah. Do you ever, when you paint, do you ever try to create a mood, like put on a certain music, or does that not work? Does that get in your head too much?
I kind of can do it either way. So there's always just like noise in my head, first of all. And second, if I'm playing music, it's just like songs I already know and like can tune out. So it's just other background noise. I can't like do anything. Like I can't have like a podcast on or anything, because then I'm really focused on the story and I'm just like not paying attention to what I'm doing, or like vice versa. But I think, you know, if I'm like really angry at something, I'll use like, I'm gonna say I'll use dark colors, but I like rarely use dark colors. It's a lot of pink all the time. But yeah, it's hard to say.
Do you notice like if your mood is different, that your artwork will turn out different?
Yeah. So I paint with a lot of layers too. So it's, if I hate it, you know, if I'm like grumpy one day and I paint it and I'm like, oh, I hate this. I'll like go back the next day when I'm not as grumpy and I'll like go over it. And I'll be like, oh, that's an entirely different thing.
That's cool. And I noticed a couple of your pieces when we were hanging them up, they have such big texture. Like, you know, like, I don't know if anybody got a chance to look, but some of them look like, pardon me, look like you pulled a rake through mud and then it froze in the winter. Like, sorry, but
I mean, that's what you see.
Yeah,
that's totally fine.
I guess that's okay.
Yeah.
So, so how did you think to do that, or did it just happen? Or?
It was more that for a very, very long time, I don't know why this was a thing, but if something was textured, like a wall or like this, I'd have to like pet it. Not in a creepy way, because I have gone
Not in a JD
people,
Vance way.
I've
Sorry.
gone up to like random strangers and been like, I need to touch your jacket, and they're just like, okay, and I'd go like this, and it'd be weird, and like, thanks, because I'm just a little bit insane. But you know, like that feeling how things feel is to me so interesting, and it's when I'm painting, I want it to have that same texture physically. So if you were to take, not these are very low texture, but there are some super textured ones out there, and if you just like turn it on its side, you can see that it's like half an inch off the page or off the canvas. And so I just think that's cool. Like I want you to be able to very gently, if you do it, touch it, because it's, I don't know, I just like the way it feels, and that's just how I like to make art. I like my hands to be like really messy, and so feeling it is just like totally part of the process.
No, that's fantastic. And like I hope in your workshops you can connect to people who are kinesthetic and really need to feel things, and will be, you know, you might bring that out of somebody who never thought of it. So
Yeah.
I hope that happens in here.
Me too.
So let me get back to the residency.
Yeah.
So what made you interested in even applying? What was the what you know, when you read the whole thing, you saw it go out? What did you want?
So I was really excited to do it. It's a great opportunity, number one, just for exposure wise and like connecting with the community, and that was a big part of it. And then the other part was having grown up in town and like having the ability to show my artwork in the library I used to come to all the time, and like the library where I was coming during the pandemic to like check out books on my mom's library card, because I'm technically not a Westfield resident and I stole her library card. Sorry, I spilled my big secret. I still don't have a library card.
There's a really cool one available now.
Right? I'm gonna wait
You
for
can wait
mine
for
to
your
come.
own, yeah.
And I'll just use hers still. But yeah, I thought that'd be really fun to just be able to have my art in the place I grew up.
And so I understand part of the residency is you the artist is here creating art. So Sam's here Wednesday and Saturdays,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what do you hope to, first tell us if you've had any interactions with library patrons.
So I've only been here 3 times so far because we did just start. But so far I'm still like feeling it out, like, and I've been by the window for 2 times and no one was really coming over. I don't know, maybe it's light traffic days or whatever. But this last Wednesday, the table that I'm usually at wasn't there, and they were like, oh, there's this table right in the doorway, you can use that. And I'm like, okay, sure, it's gonna be awkward. And it kind of was, but people, as soon as they walked in, were like, oh, let's go look at the artist. And first of all, it's so cool when someone calls you an artist.
Of course.
So every time I'd be like, right? Number 2, I'd like, you know, it was mostly kids because it was Wednesday after school, so they're coming in for their clubs or check out books or whatever they're doing, and, you know, just watching kids, like, their minds kind of see what's happening and be like, oh, someone can just, like, do this in the library? Like, what is happening? And that wasn't a thing when I was a kid. Like, there's no artist just sitting in the doorway. So it's really interesting, I think, to get the other perspective and watching them come in and see, like, oh, what's going on? Can I try it? I just, like, gave kids a bunch of paper and, like, some pastels, and they went nuts, and it was cool. And one of the kids actually, it was, like, 2 brothers. They were very young, like, maybe 4 and 6. They were going to Pokemon Club, and then afterwards, they, like, drew a whole thing, and afterwards the mom came back with the 2 kids, and she was like, he really wanted to show you what he drew. And it was the little Pikachu. And I was like, wait, I love this. And it was just like really fun to see that. And so I'm like, maybe that's where we sit now, I guess. But, you know, it's cool to have that interaction and for people to ask, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? There were, you know, all ages coming up to me too, which was cool. And older people being like, oh, are you the new artist? That's fun. Like, kind of busting my chops a little bit. Like, oh, what are you making? And I'm like, I don't know. A mess. That's what I make. I make a mess. I'm covered in paint. I'm covered in pastels. Just everything, everywhere, all the time. So it's, you know, it was cool. It's
That's
fun.
great. That's
so far,
great.
so good.
Yeah, because that's the purpose of the residency.
Yeah.
Is to interact with the public and let kids know and let people know art's okay. It's part of our world. Like, you should be expressing yourself. Like, so that's fantastic. So sit in front of the door every time.
Yeah, and there is
Isn't
good
that great?
light there, actually.
Yeah. What's that?
There is good light there.
That's
I know
even
we
better.
talked about that.
Yeah,
So,
that's even better.
it was good.
Yeah, we're constantly, this program's evolving too, right? This is our third one. We're, you know, it's already now 4 months instead of 3 months. So we're constantly making changes. So it's fantastic. Sorry, I'm going back to my questions. So do you have set plans for the actual workshops yet or do you have like an idea in your mind?
So I think what I want to do, I haven't finalized anything, it's just like very rough ideas, but it can be all ages, because art should be for everyone and everyone can do art. I know people say, I'm not an artist, but like you are, let's be real. If you can write your own name, you're an artist. Even if you can't, that's totally okay. So for me, it's like kind of getting people comfortable with approaching like a blank page, because for me that's really difficult, which is why I start everything, like everything looks like this because I start with a random color just to make it not a white page. And that makes it so much easier, and I think that's what holds people back a lot of the time, because they're scared to like ruin this white paper. So just kind of like start with that and teach them like about layers and how colors interact and things like that. And that abstract art is literally whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be textured. It can be realistic, but it can be like a bird that's like lime green with purple feathers. You know, that's abstract. So kind of breaking down those barriers where people have those preconceived notions of what art is and should be, and just being like, you don't need to do any of that. Like, there are rules, yeah, but like, are there? There aren't.
I want to hear how that goes, because I know I've heard, and even for me, like sometimes a white blank canvas or paper is terrifying.
It's
like
scary.
Not knowing what to do, or if you don't have a reference already, or if you have an idea of what you're trying to produce, like, what do I do? And I've heard too, like for those like Margaret, for those who have taught art, I've heard too that adults are a lot harder to teach than kids, like especially drawing or something, because they're afraid to make mistakes or afraid to be criticized. Or so I'd love to hear your experience once you do, or maybe I'll hide in the background and watch. You know, it's open to the public.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll have to sign up though. So I just want to hear how it goes. That would be good. And you know, when you wrote to us about your artist in residency, you talked about the second workshop maybe incorporating collage.
Yeah.
So, like, explain what collage is and why you think that would be another.
So collage is basically just taking random scraps or papers or whatever and gluing them on a piece of paper. That's a collage. No rules. Again, no rules. But for me, I do have one work that's out in the hall right now. I'm gonna bring more, but it's a collage abstract flowers. It was just kind of random. I was playing around and they kind of look like flowers. I just cut random shapes out of a random scrap paper and put it together, and it was really cool. So I did that a few more times. I do have a couple others, and I think just, you know, create a painting and then cut it up, because that's also terrifying. And again, like, you think it's a finished piece, and then you can always take it and turn it into something else. And so having that extra step where it's like, oh, you made a really cool painting, now I want you to cut circles or random shapes, or even tear it and then glue it together and see how that works for you and how you kind of interact with that, I think would be cool. I just want other people to like understand that art can be anything.
That's
anything.
great.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna shift topics a little bit. Like, so you're the chairperson of the Westfield Public Arts Commission. So do you want to tell everybody like what that is?
Sure.
No bad words. What it is, and sorry, and just like what you do and how, like, because speaking about Westfield and public arts, like that's part of it. So tell everybody about it.
So the Public Arts Commission, their main goal is to bring public art to the town of Westfield. It's still a brand new committee. It's only been about 5 years or so. And yeah, we have a bunch of projects that we've done in the past, photo shows, we did sculptures last year, different art related things, murals, that we're trying to put up all over town to encourage engagement and community and all that fun stuff, and get people to really want to see their town with this beautiful art.
Did it start with the Art Takes Flight, the butterflies? Was that the first? That was the first thing?
Margaret's
That was
nodding,
the first
so
thing.
yes.
Well, Roy did a mural before that, but that was our inaugural public project.
Right. So for those of you who don't know, Westfield has a bunch of art. Now that Art Takes Flight was a limited time, not a limited time, but it was set for a period, and then now there are butterflies around town. And then some of the other things, like Sam has her art in the town of Westfield, like on the old Rialto building and underneath the Central Avenue train pass. And so do you want to tell anybody a little bit? Because Sam's also a muralist, which is a whole nother
It's a whole
world.
separate thing.
What's that?
It's a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
Same but different. Yeah, so I randomly, they were doing the welcome murals under the train and the train tracks, and my dad saw the article in like the Patch or whatever, one of those things, and he was like, "Why don't you do this?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure. What do you got to lose?" And I think I submitted a description at like 11:50 on the day it was due. And it was accepted, and so that's actually when I went to pick up the boards the first time I met Margaret, and how she got me involved eventually in joining the Public Arts Commission. And so yeah, I created, if you're looking under the train tracks on Central, there's like a W and an F, that one's mine. And then, so it's 2 panels, and then I have a mural at the Rialto, it's the pink wall, that's kind of facing East Broad Street. Is that the street?
Yeah.
East Broad Street. Says, "Let my inspiration flow," and that's a line from a Grateful Dead song. So sneakily bringing the Grateful Dead to town, in case anyone's wondering. And so those are like my 2 big ones. I do have another one, a few other things that I've painted for Bar 3, which is where I work sometimes, and I did a mural inside of Lord and Taylor when it was converted into a school a few years ago, and that was a huge project. I was like, "You have a week to do this," and it's like a 60-foot wall, two 30-foot walls, but still.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
So it's mural painting is a lot different than doing anything else. It's very physical. You're like up and down on ladders. You're trying not to like hurt yourself by climbing, and oh my gosh, it's so much standing and it's so tiring. It's like a full body exercise, and I don't think, like my one at the Rialto is just pink with red letters, and you would think that would be super easy, but you know,
Oh,
because
yeah.
our walls were the same terrible brick texture, and it took, what was it, like 3 gallons of primer just to get it not be brick colored.
Yeah. It took me 5 hours to prime my mural.
Yeah, it was like 2 days. And
Of
I'm-
going like this, on the,
It
not
was-
painting. I was stabbing
yeah,
the brick.
it was very difficult and time consuming.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then it's just a layer of pink. I think I did 2 layers, and then I very complicatedly wrote my own. It's my own handwriting, and I wrote it. I can't even describe the process I used. It was wrong. Don't do it. But to me, it made sense. But yeah, that's that.
Did you have that feeling like I was watching a few of the other mural artists and they were projecting their pieces and then drawing them in? I'm like, you use a projector? And they're like, you don't use a projector? Like, it was so like.
No, it was. I wish I could describe it. So, okay, I did the original sketch on my iPad. I went to the wall, did the primer, did the base coat, took a picture of the wall, and because I put the handwriting on a separate layer, I was able to put it over the picture of the wall I just took. And then from there, I was like, okay, there's like all these weird indentations or markings or weird brick layout. And so I knew like, this is where the top of the L is, and this is where
That's
the E
cool.
goes.
That's really cool.
There's a lot better ways to do that. But to me in that moment, it made perfect sense. But yeah, so that's how I did that. So completely opposite than just tracing it on a projector.
Yeah, you were art problem solving.
Yeah, crafty.
So is there anything else you want to share about your art, about your, like, one of the things I was thinking, like, do you have favorite artists? Are your favorite artists abstract, expressionists, or are they, because you mentioned Impressionism before.
Oh yeah, I love Impressionism.
Yeah. Who's your favorite? Well, you don't have to choose.
No, I'll tell you. So my favorite painter is Van Gogh, but my favorite painting is by Degas.
Wow.
I know, I've thought about this.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, those are the two. I mean, they're all great, obviously, but those are the two specific ones. And I just think Van Gogh, like, his whole story in general is really cool. And like he, yes, has become a very commercial artist. I mean, through no fault of his own.
Yeah. And he died a pauper.
Yeah,
so
like he
With
never
all
made
his-
any money from his art. It's totally fine, and now he's
his brother made money.
yeah. Now he's just like one of the most celebrated artists of all time, and
Yeah.
so I think his approach is really interesting, and how he saw things was really interesting because it's not. It is an object, but it's not. It's distorted. It's skewed. It's something like that, and it's fascinating to see how he took something regular and just kind of like twisted it.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's, you know, even if I do paint like a specific, like if I do a still life, like I'm still trying to incorporate like his, not mindset, because that would make me sound insane, but the way that he painted. So I was actually just talking to someone about their kid's senior project, which made me remember my senior project where I painted. I mean, I put it off for like 3 months and didn't turn it in until like the last possible second. It was due like 2 months before that. But what
I'm
I did,
detecting a trend.
I am queen procrastinator. I'm 20 minutes late to everything. Sorry if I work for you. You get used to it. Like I showed up 2 minutes before this started. It's fine. But yeah, I was thinking I wanted so badly to paint in the style of Van Gogh. Like I picked a random self-portrait of his. He's wearing a hat. I painted myself with the hat. It looks so bizarre. I can picture it so clearly in my head. I'm sure it's somewhere in my house. So I did that because, you know, he's a big self-portrait guy. And then I did not sunflowers, but just like random red flowers because he did sunflowers. And so I remember sitting on my bedroom floor at like 3 a.m. painting, like literally like this, which is not how you should do anything. And when you're 17, like that makes perfect sense to be painting at 3 a.m. on the floor. But yeah, it was so cool to like do the texture and like go so slowly that it's still kind of moving and shifting, and like this is how he was doing this in 1880. Like that's bonkers.
Did you do an oil too?
No, just acrylic. I didn't know how oils worked until I took a class maybe like 6 years ago, where I found out I'm definitely allergic to like turpentine.
Oh, yeah, don't use it.
I was very itchy.
Oh,
I was like, I can't do this. Even though it's being graded, like I can't. Yeah.
Does anybody have any other questions that they wanted to ask, or anything about her art career? Or
I was curious how you did paint, whether, like, are you standing in front of an easel or a canvas, or are you painting, I heard someone say the other day, horizontally, like, is that just sitting on the floor and just throwing stuff? And how do you know when you're done?
You don't.
best question, yeah.
You don't know.
Or if
How
gone
do I
too
paint?
far? What if you, like, can't do a control
Oh
C?
yeah, you can definitely tell when you've gone too far. It looks awful. And that's really hard to tell because my paintings are so weird that I don't know if it's done, but I can tell when it's too done and it's bad. But I have an easel at home. I also use a table. Sometimes I'm sitting, sometimes I'm standing. Really just depends on the mood or how tired I am or how invested I am in whatever I'm doing. Sometimes it's just like for fun, so I don't care what it looks like or how it's done or whatever, but normally I'm standing. Yeah. Standing, like, so, let's see if I can give you an example. So these both have like kind of drip marks on it, so I like to use, that's so much easier when they're on the easel. And then I just kind of like spray it with a water bottle and let it fall down. And then I get it all over the floor if there aren't enough paper towels. So that's kind of how you get the like gravity and that kind of pulls that down. So that would be the easiest way to do that. But everything else is, if it's like one of those big, like super textured-y, like ridgy pieces, those are usually flat on a table because they're just so heavy while they're wet. And then you can kind of like see into all the cracks. And then it depends like how I'm feeling, but I'll do maybe like 2 at a time for the works on paper just because they're small and they're like fast and I'm not going to do like 75 layers on those. And I'll do like 2 at a time, similar color schemes, and then I'll just like get a crazy idea and try it on one of them, and it can be completely opposite colors sometimes. It's a really fascinating process. Come watch if you want. It's wild. It's very loud. I also use a hairdryer a lot because I'm very impatient, and that's something I've
Acrylic
learned.
doesn't dry fast enough.
It doesn't dry fast enough, especially when it's like dripping like that. But I've learned in the few times I've been here at the library, like without my hairdryer, I'm literally just watching paint dry, and I'm like, like, is it dry yet? Is it dry yet? I might just paint over it. Like I painted a layer the other day and just like put it off to the side and was like, okay, I'm ready, but it's not dry. So
That's when you need some mom and kids to walk in.
yeah.
Come on over.
Yeah, luckily that's what happened. Then I let them paint it. I'm like, I don't care, go nuts. This is like a collaborative art project. Yeah. Is that your question? I think I answered it. Okay. Yeah, and when it's done, like, who knows?
Are those 2 done behind them? Like,
Yeah.
Will you
these
ever
are
go
done.
back and paint something that years later or over?
No. I don't think I'd paint over something. I want to, but I'm too scared.
Sit on your hands.
I think because normally we put this up on YouTube afterward. For anybody at home, do you want to tell people about, you're one of the few artists I know that has their own website and Etsy. So do you want to tell people like?
Sure. So I have my own website. It's just sammooneyart.com. I have all my paintings there and like canvas, really big canvases, bigger than these. I have there too. All for sale. All my work's on paper, even more than what's here. Hopefully, I think. It's like such a hard process to design a website and then constantly update it with your art, and I'm terrible at it. Like I literally just added 6 things today and it took 4 hours and I wanted to bang my head against the desk. That's what I was doing while I was at work today instead of my job. I was like, everything that I need to do today will be done tomorrow. This comes first, but yeah, so there's that. I have no idea what my Etsy thing is. I think it's just Sam Mooney Art. If you type that in, it's there. I have stickers. So those are more realistic. Those are flowers that I like.
They're cool.
flowers. Yeah.
And
they're
stickers are like an in thing the past 5 years, right?
Yeah, and so if I do like an art show or like an art market, those are the only things that sell. No one buys $50 paintings at an art show.
And you pay like
You
$150
pay
for a
so much
booth,
money,
and
yeah.
you sell stickers. You're
And
like,
you make your dad sit there for the full 8 hours. And he just watches sports on his phone the whole time. I'm like, Dad, look alive. And he's like, sorry, that's what you sound like. He's like, what? Did you sell something? No, no one's come over here. But stickers are the thing that like, keeps the art business going.
Yeah. You should bring some in while you're creating.
Yeah,
Because kids love stickers.
thought about that.
And they're not expensive, and it's just not. I'm not saying you're hawking your stuff.
It's like $4.
Yeah.
You can Venmo me.
Yeah.
That's fine too. I do bring like a QR code for my Venmo to markets. So yeah, it's a good idea.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So you do big size canvases. What do you prefer, a certain size or?
So I really like doing the big ones. They're just very difficult to have in my house. I sleep maybe 3 inches away from my easel. The other night I went to bed and it just reeked of acrylic paint, so I've probably been slowly poisoning myself. We're good, don't worry. It's fine. But yeah, so I'd prefer to do the larger ones, but it's just really hard and it's just all like space, and I don't have any storage space, so everything lives in my garage, which is taking up my parents' garage. So they don't love that. But sorry.
They're very supportive.
Yeah, that's great. They are, but yeah, it's just a lot easier and like faster to do the smaller ones, which is why I have so many of those like 9x12s.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just fun.
Yeah.
They're quick.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question. Do you work on multiple pieces at the same time, or are you always just like, you work on one painting till it's done, put it aside, then start something new?
Always multiple at a time because I can't focus on one thing at once. And also I overestimate how much paint I'm gonna need. And so I'll like do it and I'll still have maybe a full bottle of paint that I've now squeezed out of the tube. So I can't like put it back in the tube. That's impossible, sort of. And then, so I just do something else, and then that might turn out to be cooler than whatever I was originally planning to do. And that's how kind of I get those like smaller. I do have 4x6 and like 5x7, so those are really easy to do because you just, they start out as like sketches as a painter, but or like I'm testing colors or whatever, and it sounds a lot cooler than it is, but it's literally just like taking blue paint and being like, I have too much blue paint. That's what 90% of painting is sometimes. But yeah, and then I do, for my Etsy orders, I do just take like a scrap piece of paper that I've randomly put this paint on, and I'll cut it up and write people the note. So you get like a little mini painting if you buy something on Etsy.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone notices that it's painted on the back, but it's,
Oh, I'm sure they do.
for me, it's there.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Do you ever do like a, you know how Picasso had his blue period? Do you ever do like a pink series? Or, well, you're always pink. Or do you do a blue series or orange series? Or?
So if I do like 5 or 6 mini ones at a time, I'll use the same color scheme, and it's just, I'm always drawn, I've noticed, to the same like 5 colors. So it's pink and yellow, then like a neon green and like a neon blue, and generally like a gray. I noticed I like pulled out a bunch of nail polish once, and I was like, oh, these colors are so cool, and I like sat and looked at them for a second. I'm like, those are the exact colors I just used for that underpass mural. Okay, that's weird. And then yeah, that just keeps happening. Like even designing the website, I'm like, what color should I put as my name? It's like obviously pink. What color should I do? Oh, it's gray. Like, okay, my business card is pink and yellow. Like those are the only colors. But yeah, I'll try and just kind of do different things with these separate pieces. And then I might add like other things, and then some of them you can tell are like part of a series. And then there might be like one sad outlier that's now just like black with like yellow on it, and it's bad. No one will ever see those. But yeah, that's how you know a painting is bad and overdone.
All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I hope everybody enjoyed learning more about Sam. And I'm excited for your,
Thank you.
especially more interaction with people. It's gonna be so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever like want to hear what people think of yours? Like, or is that
No, I do.
you like that?
So I think all of my art is super cool. I said that when we were hanging out. I'm like, ugh, looks so good, because to me it looks so good. Like I think it's so cool. But to other people, like, okay, what is this to you? Like, is it just green and pink? I keep going to this one but it could be nothing. You know, people will look at it and be like, I don't get it. There's nothing to get. It's whatever you want it to be. I've said that 97 times, but you know.
No, but I think that's a
I
good thing
think it's
because some
cool.
people think they have to get something.
You don't have to get anything.
Yeah.
It's like, do you see like a boat? Do you see a unicorn? It's, you know, that's what you see. That's what your mind sees. Good for you. Good job.
Yeah. Oh, I see unicorn. It's
See?
right there. See?
Actually, kind of. Do you see that white
Yes,
cloud? That's like
what
a
I'm saying.
horse.
I
Yeah.
thought you did it on purpose.
No. But
Unicorn
also,
with the pink
yeah.
pink hat.
you can turn it upside down. It'll be a totally different thing. Go nuts.
That's cool. Yeah, sometimes I'll go. Like, have you ever done this? You're in a museum and you just stand by one painting and listen to what people say.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's so fun.
Yeah. I went to a museum with my friend last week, and I found it very interesting. It was expressionism, impressionist expressionism, and food. It was weird, but you know, like late 1800s, 19th century impressionist depictions of like food and farming, and it was very boring, but like academically very boring, but artistically really interesting because that's the time I like. But I'm just staring at like one painting of this woman with like a pitchfork. So boring, but so like the subject is so boring. Come on, but the actual physical painting is so cool, and I just like stared at it because now I'm looking, as I paint more, I'm now looking at like how did this person do this,
Yeah.
and how can I kind of take that and put it into my own painting. Not paint a lady with like a pitchfork, but like how do I get that series of colors? And so hearing people walk by and be like, this is so dumb, this is boring, why are we looking at this? Like, you, first of all, paid money to come to this exhibit. Second, it is very boring, I'm not saying it's not. But the actual artistic value of it is really fun. And hearing people be like, okay, yeah, I get it, is fun too.
That's cool.
Yeah. Abstract art is hard to judge too, so it's like, I can't even think of a single painter right now, but anyone who does abstract art, like if you look at a Jackson Pollock painting, like it's just splatter paint. Anyone can do that, come on. But the reason his is so like prolific and well known is because it was new for the time period and how he did it, and blah 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 blah. But you know, it's so cool, like as an abstract painter, to see that is something you can make on a large scale. You can get it in a museum. You can be famous for that.
Yeah.
But then there's also people. Who's the guy that does like the shapes?
Rothko? No, Piet Mondrian.
Well, he had.
He did the
He did
blue
the
and the
squares.
squares and
Like
the.
that's, anyone can do that too, you know. And
Have you ever seen when he painted realism, Mondrian?
maybe.
He was like shockingly good at
Yeah.
painting flowers and still lives and people. And then he said, "Oh, I'm gonna draw boxes. They're red and white and yellow," and that's how he became famous.
And that's like, I can paint a still life. I just don't want to. You know? So it's interesting. There's so many facets of painting. Yeah.
Anyway, we don't want to talk all night.
No,
So
I mean,
been
whatever.
close to an hour. Anyway, thanks everybody. Yeah, because we could
Thank you.
talk all night. It's